everyone. Welcome back to Campden Interactive Series. Through our current Bridging Generational Gap series, we aim to decode some difficult dinner table conversations for multi-generational wealthy families. Our guest for today is Akshat Saraf, third generation member of the promoter business family, Radha Smelters Private Limited. Akshat has been a Campden member for many years, and today he's on board to give a NextGen's perspective on cultural shifts in family businesses. He also recently got married. So let's begin our episode with a hearty congratulations to Akshat and best wishes for a new journey. Welcome, Akshat. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Patni. Pleasure to be here.
And please call me Arihant. I think it's in this time and age, it's best to be casual, regardless of the large age gap that you and I might have.
Yeah.
But welcome and thank you for taking time to do this. We're going to approach a fairly sensitive topic today. I've been part of a multi-generational family business. I think yours is more multi-generation than mine was. So would love to hear your thoughts for the benefit of our audience in terms of how you are navigating through this as a family. So according to you, how does culture influence or impact various aspects of running a family business?
So I'd like to start off by talking about, what culture really is, in completely layman's language. Like, culture is just, a culmination of shared beliefs, ideas, and systems that have come into place through experience and over a long period of time, right? So it's just like an observable behavioral pattern. So I feel like culture is extremely important in a family business, especially because it acts like an informal Bible, in a sense, right? For your company as well as your family. Your own family culture really determines how your company runs as well. And usually is passed on all levels of hierarchy.
Right.
Like the junior most employee will also kind of have a sense of how we operate. With that being said, steadiness in culture is really important according to me, because if you yourself don't believe in your own culture, there's no way you can convince, your team or your company to work in the same manner. So I always believe that culture is like a foundation, and if your foundation is bad, you're going to have pretty badly designed buildings. And what I mean by this is, let's say you have different culture in your family, two people believe in something, two others believe in something else. The messages passed on, especially in a family unit, will be so mixed and vague that everyone else will just be confused and in a state of ambiguity. So to avoid that, culture kind of brings a little bit of, unification in terms of communication as well. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I think, what culture means is so important. I'm glad you brought that up. And just playing off a little bit from our universe, right? I mean, your culture in a purely professional IT setup could be very different from a manufacturing business and so on and so forth. And I remember back in the day, as IT companies were rising to fame and expanding. India actually hadn't evidencing a new culture of the tech workplace, right? In terms of everything from remuneration, everything from how you sort of manage your projects, how do you take care of employees, how you motivate them, how you prevent attrition, which was very different from a lot of other peer groups. And I think it's so important to know, right, what Patni Computers or Infosys set as a culture for that cohort going forward was very important and very different from maybe what other cultures or values might be. So I agree. I think it's very important to know your culture so embrace it, and only then can you actually have it trickle down the organization.
Absolutely.
I'll jump to the next question. So through our current, so how different and, feel free to be as open or how you would like to be in this case. And because this is always a contentious issue, but how different is your cultural ideology from that of your father? And how did you manage these differences?
So being very candid, I really do feel that the ideology, the core sense of it at least, between me and my father and me and my family members has been the same, because, we all got it from my grandfather, my dad and uncle's father. And he always, was a common teacher for us, and we've always taught to be fair, just, and ethical.
Yeah.
Like he always told us, matlab, I'm going to translate just for the sake of our audience, but he always said it's never, sensible or advisable to, indulge in gray areas of business,
Sure.
or, be shady or do any of those, unethical practices just to earn a pretty penny. He basically said that, what makes a good businessman great, what separates good from the best, rather, is how they maintain their respect, their dignity, and long-term relationships throughout their business life, right? Like you could be extremely good at finance or whatever your core competency is.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that respect, self-respect, and, just the ability to maintain and foster long-term relationships, you're not going to be a great businessman. You're going to be a very short-term, focused business leader. So you would always say that respect is like, pushing a boulder up a mountain. So you have to really work hard, struggle, and, it's a strenuous process, and it takes a really long time. And even when you get to the very top, you kind of have to hold the boulder there and, still use your strength to maintain it at that point. Because one slip of the foot and, one wrong move ends up pushing the boulder right to the bottom, right? So, I mean, in a sense, we've always been brought up in the sense that, be ethical, be fair, and, work hard, just believe in yourself. And that has been the constant, source of how we operate. And a key area of difference in culture that I find is like how we interact with our employees, right? So let's say in my dad's generation, you would limit access to only the key, the topmost level of management. You would only talk to them and never interact with anyone else. Whereas for me, I believe that, especially as a new entrant in the business, I've hardly been here for 4.5 years. It's extremely important for me to learn from the ground up and really, get down to the grassroots of it. And I can only do that if I have an open dialogue with, the most junior employee as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like, that is different. And we often disagree about that because he thinks, it's a matter of prestige, which makes complete sense to me. Like, I absolutely agree. But for someone who is like, I can't just walk into the office on the first day and just sit in the boss's chair and, call it a day. I have to learn. I have to grow myself. I haven't grown this empire myself, right? So in terms of cultural differences, that is a big one. And there are a lot of small ones like that. But the only way I've found to manage these differences and to come to a common platform is communication. Like you just have to sit down and have a long, like a informal dinner table chat.
Yeah.
Give each other your perspectives. And only then can you move forward, and only then can you, have a good understanding and move forward with whatever you need to.
Absolutely right. And I think, when you talk about multi-generational families, and especially even learning from the West, I think the two key aspects that keep it, in continuum. One, as you mentioned, is the value system of, integrity, of longevity, of maintaining long-term relationships with your, network of people, your customers, your employees, so on and so forth. And the second one that I often come across is just the frugality of not wasting resources. Thank you for sharing. I think we've already talked a little bit about my next question, but I'll pose it nonetheless. Because we always talk about, the new generation coming in and things will be different and business is different. We talked about that. The question is that, is it true that next-gen leaders are catalysts for cultural change? So aside from what you've just shared about, being more sort of having a more flatter organization approach or a flatter communication approach within the organization, were there any other sort of areas where maybe even not today, but going forward, you see a big change in culture?
Yeah, I mean, I do think absolutely. I think next-gen leaders are definitely a catalyst for cultural change.
Yeah.
And having a catalyst that brings in something, of course, we next-gen definitely does, bring something to the table there. Besides that, tech and data are the biggest things right now. And while we were growing up, we were so exposed to it, just, in terms of, say, video games or classes in school that our parents never had. So it's a lot easier for us to grasp and implement certain changes such as this. And that really, as I was mentioning, tech-driven and data-driven businesses are the only ones I think that are going to survive. Gone are the days of intuition, experience. Obviously that does count, but I definitely feel that data and tech are the way to go. So in terms of bringing about those changes, we are actively, so me and two cousins of mine, we're actively bringing about change in terms of how we operate and how we make decisions. We're also getting in more qualified people on board, like more educated people, more consultants to tell us, how we can essentially be better. There's a quote I really like, which states that every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. And I feel like that's extremely true in the landscape of running any business. And as long as you keep expanding your field of vision, whether it be through education, whether it be through just talking to new people, whether it be through attending Campden conferences, right? You just need that to kind of make changes. And our parents have been in the business for so long that sometimes the field of vision can be limited. Yeah. So I feel like in that sense, we are bringing about a lot of change.
Super. And data and tech, totally agree with you. I mean, they're both big passions for me. I think the way forward is really how do you marry human gut, as you mentioned, with data-driven insights. And if it's done right, I think it can be incredibly powerful.
So I read somewhere that man plus machine will always be better than either man or either machine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can have a whole different session on that. But it's a very interesting transformation. I think that we're seeing across the world in very different, industries. You mentioned about your cousins, right? And I think one question is that, we always talk about multi-generational culture, but there is a difference in culture even in the same generation, possibly. And you're a few years apart or, many years apart, perhaps in some cases. So how do you feel about that? And within your generation, either with your family, within your family, or even other families that have you seen a lot of cultural rifts between cousins, between, other folks in the same generation?
Yeah, I mean, overall, navigating the waters of a family business, regardless of how close in age or, relationship you are, it requires a very delicate balance of, respect, culture, communication, dedication, and everyone needs to pull their weight. So I feel like, no one said this was easy, but it sure is worth it when it goes right. And in terms of dealing with my cousins, it's the same thing. As long as we're all pulling our weight, we're happy with each other. And we at least personally in our family, we do support each other wherever required. And we do, stay out of it when there's no business of ours being in theirs, right?
Yeah.
So in that sense, you kind of have to set boundaries in what you are doing. There can be involvement, there can be advisory, but I think if you don't overstep your boundaries, you're good. And I have seen a lot of rifts in families that we do know. That again usually stems from one person trying to do everything, and some others maybe not pulling their weight. That kind of creates an unfair feeling, for whoever's doing more work or whatever, right? So that it's again a very delicate balance that you have to kind of maintain there. But I think boundaries are very important to control that.
And I think your point about boundaries is spot on, because in our generation now and in the younger generation, I think you respect that a lot more than previous generations have. And I think it's also a boundary between professional and personal. And earlier, they were merged, right? And you kind of had to live the same life that everyone else is. So if it's about showing up at 9 a.m. and going home at 6 p.m., that's what you did, or going home at 9 p.m. And now I think, things are a lot more open, and as long as people pull their weight, as you said, and work gets done, you don't really care whether a certain individual lives in a certain place, or works nighttime versus daytime, all of those sort of personal things. And that's keeps the focus, right? It keeps things sort of more professional versus sullying it with other issues.
So my uncle is really instrumental in keeping us together like that. I call him Bade Papa because we are extremely close, and he's just like a father to me. And so there's 5 of us right now working in the business, right? My 2 cousins, myself, my uncle, and my dad. And he calls us the Iron Fist. And he always says that there's a saying, right, in some filmy dialogue where mutti ek saath hai to hai, whereas individually you don't work. So that's a very important thing, and I really resonate with the Iron Fist, saying, especially since we're in the steel business.
Yeah, well said, and very true, of course. And I think as much of perhaps extra work and energy that you have to put in order to make things work as a family, in terms of different people, different cultures, different personalities, and it is a lot of work because you have to kind of solve for it. But the strength that comes together, when it works, as you rightly said, is enormous.
Right.
And I think that's another component of ensuring that family businesses keep sort of, growing across generations, right? If you can pass that down. I think we're on to our last question, and unless, of course, we can feel free to share other thoughts as well. And it kind of is a good segue based on what we were talking about. How do you sort of make sure that the family business keeps regenerating rather than sort of dissipating at the end of, let's say, the 3rd generation, 4th generation, and as families grow and so on and so forth. So how do you establish continuity? How does a leader inculcate an ideal culture for his team and employees? Because at some point, as things sort of expand, you will bring in external management, and you will bring in people outside the family to run businesses for the family, and that happens. So how do you kind of trickle this culture down in your view?
Again, I can give you a very short answer for this because this is what I really believe in. But I always say, be the change you wish to see. I mean, if you want to kind of inculcate certain values, certain cultures into your employees, into your team, into your professional family, you really have to live it. In the sense that, like I spoke about, like ethics and not pinching pennies just for the sake of it in my previous answers. It's extremely important to be fair, just, and ethical even here. And when you expect something from your employees, they have a right to expect the same from you. So I can give you a short example. I mean, a personal example that I have been through. So this was right after the first lockdown, the first COVID lockdown, and businesses were obviously closed. Manufacturing was closed for a large amount of time, and the trend in the steel sector was to not, pay full salaries, or even if you did, do like 50% or something like that, right? So we were the first steel company here in, I'd say, even South India, to kind of give out full salaries and provide COVID insurance on the house, and cover their families and everything. And that really boosted the morale of our company and our employees, and they really felt like these people preach Radha family so much, like you're a family, we're with you, this, that. And when they did get the chance, they actually proved it. So that is one thing. And another thing that happened right after the lockdown was that the sales team was particularly demoralized because they would have to go out and meet people. Like, steel is not a sector that you can do business over the phone so easily, right? And the only way out I saw was like, I also have to gear up and I have to go and meet people as well. So starting August 16th, I remember, because like it was the day after obviously Independence Day, we started a new campaign. We started a distributor growth contest where we were giving out like, vehicles and stuff to new distributors who would do a certain, who would meet a certain criteria essentially in terms of sales. And rather than just me telling my salespeople, you go, you kind of, risk your life and do whatever you want, I went with them. And we took all the precautions. We took weekly RT-PCRs and did everything necessary. But me going with them kind of, solidified the belief that, look, everyone is working towards the benefit of the company. It's not just us that have to do it. And I feel like leading by example is the best way to inculcate any ideals or any cultures or any, changes that you wish to see in your employees. Because let's say if I expect my employees to be there sharp 9 o'clock, right? And if I'm never there before 11, they might not take me seriously. They'll be like, hey, the boss's son has just joined the business and he's asking us to do whatever, and he's not even following the same. So I feel like that's the kind of leadership, at least I kind of partake in. And I always believe in practice what you preach.
Great. So thanks a lot, Akshat, for having this candid conversation. Look forward to you chatting with you further at other opportunities. So stay tuned with us for more such candid conversation at the Campden Interactive Series. And until then, please stay safe, be well, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.